Hi class, it's Bill and we are continuing with our object-oriented programming review and introduction to IntelliJ. Remember that where we left off in the last video, we finished the bank class mostly. We have some preconditions and there was a little code that was lacking, so let's polish that up and make sure that we are good with that. So let's jump back to our code. I did paste in some code for these last two methods, so let me put them on the screen in a place where they're exactly right for you. If you want to pause the video and look those over, go ahead and do that now. All right, so let's take care of our preconditions and just make sure that we've thought those things through and we feel like the bank class is completely good and working. All right, so the interest rate, what do we want to do with that? We probably could look back on our document and see what it says. It probably says that exactly what's going on. Let's see, you don't need it. I don't know whether it says it or not, but we could probably be pretty clear on the fact that a negative interest rate is not going to be a thing, right? You're not going to pay people or take money away from people by having an interest rate less than zero. So certainly we want to have some sort of precondition here, like if interest rate is less than 0.0, then we want to throw new illegal argument exception, interest rate must be non-negative, right? Or must not be negative. All right, so we could do something like that. Now, notice in bank account, we already had something about verify non-negative. So one of the things that we could see here is we don't like to duplicate code even if it's in other classes. So where does this really belong, this verify non-negative? Well, it really isn't specific to bank accounts or banks. So what I would probably do is pull this out and make it in a utility class, right? So just make a little class that contains utilities that can do this fun stuff. So you know, I suppose while we're here, right, while we're talking, let's do that. So I'm going to say new Java class and I'm going to call it utility, right? And then you can pull this over and have it in a different spot if you want. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this thing and I'm going to pull it out of here, right? I'm going to put it in the utility class. And since I'm not going to be using any private data, right? Notice that this doesn't actually use any instance data, right? So I can actually make this a static, right? So since anything that doesn't use instance data probably should be, in fact, a static method. They're going to run faster because they don't participate in polymorphism and dynamic dispatch. And so as a good matter of, you know, good citizenship, we will probably make those things static, right? So let's go now back to this. And now instead of just calling this, I can say utility dot, right? Because that's how you call a static. And in this case, what is it complaining about? It has private access, so obviously we can't have that. It needs to have public access. And so now that should all be good, right? So now we've moved that from bank account, and we can now call it in any place where we have it by saying utility dot. And now bank account is good, and then in bank we can do the very same thing, right? So we can say utility dot verify non-negative, and then we first put the context, which is interest rate, and then we put the number, which is going to be passing along the interest rate that was passed to us in the parameter. Right? So that is now even better at keeping code duplication away from us, which is always a happy thing, right? Always a good thing. Make sense? All right, so that takes care of the preconditions on interest rate. That one is good, so we've taken care of that to do. What kind of preconditions on this? Well, what if they gave us an empty string? What if they gave us a null, right? Because remember, on all object references, one of our concerns is if they pass us null, because that could be an alternative that can be possible, accidentally or on purpose. So rather than writing something here, why don't we make another utility function that seems quite useful? Public static void verify verify object not null. Right? And in this case, again, we're going to have the string for the context, and then we're going to have, now, what is the data type of this thing, right? Because we would like to be able to pass it anything that is an object reference and have it work. So the clever thing to do here is pass an object, right? So that way, if it's anything, could be a string, could be a bank account, could be a bank, it could be anything, right? That will all come in here. Those will all be good here. You should understand why that works because of inheritance. Remember, object is the implicit parent of all classes that you create, implicit, right? So now it's easy that we can say if object equals null, right? And then we can throw new, illegal, etc. And we again say, context plus must not be null. Okay, that's cool. And it reviews a little bit about inheritance, right? Because we have this implicit parent in the object class. So now over in the bank class, the preconditions here can simply be utility.verify object not null ID, right? And why are you complaining about that? Can I be blah, blah, blah? Why? Let me look at that for a second. And it's a simple problem. I just didn't give the context, right? ID, remember to give the context. Remember if a function has two parameters, you better call it with two parameters. Otherwise you stare at it for a while and go, why isn't this working? What's wrong? You start blaming Java for things when it's your own silly fault. Okay, so in getAccount, now we have the check to make sure that the string is not null. We might also want another one that checks for empty strings, right? So for instance, public static void verify string not empty, right? Seems like a lot, but why not context? And then here we can really pass a string, right? We don't have any other context, we'll just call it string, and then we can say if string is empty, right? I like that one, right? Is empty. If the string is empty, throw new illegal argument exception, context plus must not be empty. Okay, you got to give me something. Don't just put two quotes, right? I'm pretty sure that's not right. That's not something I can accept because I think that's bad data, right? You don't really want me to look for that. So now we have this verify string not empty as well. So now in bank here, we can also say utility.verify string not empty, and the context is the ID. And then we're going to pass along the ID. So we're going to call both of those things. And then once we're past that point, then everything's cool, right? Then they go along with our normal coding here, right? So you see, we're not just doing this sample project to do a throwaway thing. We're really talking through some interesting things, and we're focusing on our general guiding principles of programming, like don't repeat code. Think about access, right? Think about privates and publics. Think about static versus instance, and make a good choice there, right? So we're trying to be, write some really good code here, and you should be able to make use of a lot of what we're talking about in your future projects. Hopefully none of this is new to you, right? Hopefully all of the stuff we're talking about you've seen, but maybe it's a good review. Hopefully is the case. All right, what about open account preconditions? Well, obviously we have the same thing. It's an object reference, right? So utility.verify object not null, and we're going to pass account and then the actual account reference, and that should be fine. This is a to-do that we'd have to ask our program manager, ask our team, hey, this seems like a reasonable thing to do, but it wasn't in the spec. Do we need to do that or not, right? For closing accounts, same thing. We're going to say utility.verify object not null and pass in the account, right? And don't forget, yes, it seems strange to have to always do two things, but one is a string to be used for the message and one is the thing to be checked, right? So now we've really, we've done a pretty good job. I don't think this needs a precondition. One could argue, I'm not sure you're going to have, you shouldn't have any accounts that are less than 0. That's an invariant that we have stated in the spec. So we probably could reject negative numbers here, but yeah, if they're just going to get nothing if they put in something funny, right? So all of that stuff now looks pretty good. That to-do we can't take care of unless we talk to the team. I'm going to leave it out for the moment. But I think now that you can see that your bank class is looking pretty darn good. So the other thing that we have to realize, and this is hopefully something that, again, you touched on a good bit in 142, we are writing supplier code here. Both bank and bank account are not supposed to talk to the user. They're not that kind of class. Unless you are specifically writing user-facing code, UI code, right? Then we should have no printing in here, and we should have no user input in here. Never in supplier code do we do that stuff, right? These classes are meant to be used by other classes. They are not UI, right? There's no UI. We would not make a main in here. That would be inappropriate, right? This is not that kind of class. So one of the things that I can do is I can do a search and say, hey, did I use the word print in here? No. Did I use a scanner in here? No, right? Make sure that our code, our supplier code is clean, right? It is really good supplier code. Now, yes, we still have JavaDoc, but how would we make sure this stuff is working? Well, our first instinct might be to create a main class and to then just start playing with it. Can I instantiate a bank? Can I create an account? Can I pass that account to open account? Could I get that back? Like, can I play with that stuff? Main is fine for playing, right? Main is fine for maybe demonstrating the fact that this thing works, right? So we can certainly do that a little bit, but it is not part of our deliverables as supplier code. The testing will do all of that as well, right? The testing is going to cover all of this stuff, and we will do that in a video to make sure that you are super clear on all of those steps, right? We will write the Java doc, right? I'm taking extra time in this video to make sure that we are going through in excruciating detail every single kind of thing that you have to do for a project, right? So that you have examples in front of you. So this video is getting a little bit long. We will, though, I guess we can just make a, yeah, I'm not going to do it. Let's just leave this alone. And if you want to take this code, hopefully you've been coding along or watching carefully, you can take this code and you can do main if you want. But remember, main in our world is for demo, right? It's just to show off that you can do your stuff. It's not a place for testing. It's not something that you're going to deliver with your projects in terms of, like I'm not particularly grading main except to make sure that you've demoed some normal stuff. Your deliverables for this code, if you were at work, is bank and bank account and all the testing and all the Java doc, right? Main would just be for you to just, sort of play with it. All right, let's stop this video here. We will come back and continue this. Again, I want to make sure that you have a super clear, super full example so that you feel really good about what you're going to be doing on your project. So thanks for watching. Let's pick it up on the next video.